Hey fitness friends, today we're back with part 5 of our nutrition pyramid series. We've talked so far about our question mark being the last thing that we're going to cover. We really got an understanding of caloric balance, the difference between calories in and calories out, and how that affects how much we weigh. We talked about food quality, which was really a discussion about how whole foods are the best foods. Next, we talked about macronutrients. What is a protein? What is a carb? What is a fat? And how much do we need to stay healthy? Now we're starting to get a little bit heady this week. This week we're talking about nutrient timing. And the reason why I wanted to talk about nutrient timing outside of just this pyramid is because nutrient timing has become something that's very popular. A lot of folks are becoming aware of this phenomena of intermittent fasting, and you'll hear things where people are very into it and telling you that it cures cancer. But then on the other side of the spectrum, we have some people who are maybe having a hard time integrating it into their lives. So I wanted to break down intermittent fasting and a couple of other protocols and what I recommend for a lot of people to do when it comes to nutrient timing. What are the lowest hanging fruits that really give us the most bang for our buck? So if we look at intermittent fasting, I'm going to say that the biggest cost of intermittent fasting for most people is just will. Willpower is a finite resource. You wake up in the morning with a certain amount of it. You have less if you're tired, and if you're energized, you maybe have a bit more. Spending it on not eating breakfast or making the choice to not eat breakfast for some people can be very challenging, and for others it's quite easy. I think that people who tend to say that it's easy to avoid breakfast gravitate and tend to do well on intermittent fasting. On the other hand, some people wake up pretty hungry, and it's my estimation that they should actually just go ahead and fuel that hunger by getting in a good breakfast. It all depends on the person. One of the benefits of this protocol, intermittent fasting, is that because there's a shorter window to fit your food in, say you decide with your intermittent fasting that you're not going to eat from 12 p.m. to, from 8 p.m. to the following 12 p.m. If you're not eating for those 16 hours, you're fasting. And during the window that you are, from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., your window to eat is now smaller, and what ends up happening is that a lot of people fit less food into their feeding windows. That's normal, and it ends up oftentimes causing people to lose weight because they're just eating less. One of the things that makes intermittent fasting fascinating is autophagy, which is a process that happens where a cell regenerates and uses its waste products as fuel or energy for its regeneration. That's all fancy stuff that actually happens often. It doesn't need to be done through fasting. You can, and there is levels of autophagy that are happening all the time. It's just that when we're in starvation mode, the body becomes efficient. If you just exercise, you actually increase autophagy. Drinking coffee can help with autophagy. Fasting is a known way of doing it, and I think that that's awesome. But what I'm trying to get at is that if you feel like fasting isn't for you, don't feel bad by not doing it because you're missing out on autophagy, because you aren't. You're actually getting it outside of just your normal fasting, okay? All right, next is carb cycling. Carb cycling is very popular in sports performance worlds. Bodybuilders love it. It's the premise that we have varying levels of what's called muscle glycogen in our muscles. We have different levels of sugar depending on where we are within a cycle of replenishment and usage of the sugar in our muscles. So for people who are athletes, carb cycling can be very useful at helping keep energy levels high while also keeping body fat levels relatively low. By cycling through low carb, moderate carb, and high carb days, we make it so that the body and its fuel reserves are never quite spilling over, but are never quite topped off either. They're kind of in that empty to moderate range on average, which causes the body to get better at using fat as a fuel source, making you hopefully a bit more metabolically flexible. Next, we've got carb backloading. One of the biggest costs of carb backloading is going to be performance. The best thing about carb backloading is that it increases your insulin sensitivity. Carb backloading is where you avoid eating carbohydrates until later on in the day. This hopefully keeps you off of the insulin sort of roller coaster that can happen when we spike our blood sugar levels. Our pancreas makes insulin, and then we go ahead and we drop our blood sugar levels, and then we decide we need to get more carbohydrates to feel energized. If we avoid that whole cycle by just keeping our diet mostly to proteins and to fats until dinner time, we hopefully help increase our body's ability to react to insulin when it actually gets made by the pancreas. Increasing our insulin sensitivity is a good thing, the opposite of which is called diabetes. Okay, lastly, the protocols that I actually recommend. So pre and post-workout food consumption is, when I think about nutrient timing, one of the lowest hanging fruits. And if you don't believe me, just do the opposite. Work out and don't eat for hours after, and then try to have as long of a break as you can before your workout, where you are fasting essentially around your workout. It's the opposite of eating. And you'll see that once you actually introduce calories before and after your workouts, that you will perform better and feel better. And that's really awesome, because now you're getting more from that workout, and the more strength and performance you can build in your workouts, the more work you can do, and the more work you can do, the more calories you burn, and it's a very nice cycle. Okay, and then lastly, a protocol, I suppose, that you can think about when it comes to nutrient timing is trying to have protein dosages that are spread out throughout the day. So in a perfect world, 4 dosages of protein that are anywhere from 20 to 40 grams is going to help keep your levels topped off protein-wise, allowing you to create protein synthesis at the cellular level whenever needed. Basically, having amino acids available throughout the day is a good thing when it comes to building muscle, and building muscle is really what it's all about, right? Okay, so that was pretty heady stuff. That's why timing is pretty high on this triangle or pyramid of nutrition. There's a lot of moving parts. It's maybe not the most important thing for most people. If we just think about getting protein spread out throughout the day and making sure that we eat before and after our workouts, I would say that that's gonna hit like 80% of the results with only 20% of the effort. Everything on this list has costs and benefits. I'm just gonna tell you that I think this is where it's at, getting in protein and having pre and post-workout nutrition. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you guys next week, where we'll hit up supplements.